All right. So I've got 30 minutes, and let me first start out so I don't forget. Our partnership with Eon Reality started 3 years ago, but really probably 4.5 when I came to this facility, in fact. And we can honestly say at Oral Roberts University, we have not seen any company that competes with Eon Reality for what we needed to do. And they have put Oral Roberts on the map, and you'll see why shortly. And I want to make sure I didn't miss that in the messaging I'm giving you because of my passion for changing education. How many of you would love it if education and corporate training could change? Cost less, right? You get it? Be shorter. And that's why virtual reality is so impactful in so many different ways, but so are other technologies. But how do you blend them together? So Oral Roberts University is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I have been there for 5 years, and one of my projects was how do we become a world leader with emerging technologies to transform education. So I just returned from Latvia, where I spoke to 22 other countries over there in different facets, but a lot of it was around virtual reality as well. I'm going to make sure I get the clicker right here. There we go. And so when you think of augmented and virtual reality, if we could go back in time 3 years ago, we wouldn't have called it AVR. We would have called it immersive learning, because people get confused. How many of you know people who are confused about this whole field? Raise your hand. There you go. How do you start? How much does it cost? What kind of tools? Is Oculus going to make it? Is this company going to do this? And so, one of the things we've probably learned is to say, let's stop calling it by the technology, augmented or virtual reality or mixed reality, and let's call it immersive learning. And sure enough, our faculty have embraced that much more. So if we take a peek inside, I'm going to turn this around a little bit here, is really if you've ever implemented big projects before, there used to be a simple process called the USA process, nothing to do with America, but it was understand what you want to do, simplify what you want to do, and then automate what you want to do. And if you follow that principle, you can't fail. And so as we partnered with Eon, we found out they were the only ones who could help us fulfill this USA process. But we first had to understand, so we did take a year to understand it, but once we understood it, we simplified it and then automated it as well. And so as we take a look, how many of you have heard of the term flipping a classroom? Okay, flipping the training room. We knew that was pretty boring, okay, because Apple Computer had proven that the only thing that puts people to sleep more than sleep itself is watching videos. And so to send students home or corporate learners home with a video is insulting. And not that engaging. In fact, I worked at Cray Research, supercomputer company, for 12 years, and I managed their video facility. And if the lights were on here, you'd see I have hairy knuckles. And I would show people how to fix a memory chip on a supercomputer module, which is about this big right here. So I'd train all these engineers around the world. They would come back every 6 months. They would come back and say, Mike, let me see your fingers. I said, why do you want to see my fingers? I just want to see if you got that much hair on your knuckles. I said, wait a minute. That's what you got from all my videotapes? Was how much hair I have on my knuckles? But it was proof that, hey, videos aren't that exciting. People will watch them for a few minutes, but how do you truly engage them? How do you immerse them, and how do you engage them? So we said, let's flip the university around the world, because no one's making money by putting bricks and mortar buildings in Abu Dhabi, Singapore. You can keep trying to do that, but nobody's proven it works. So we said, let's set up our Global Learning Center. It was an $8.5 million project, and let's use augmented and virtual reality as the key component of that. And so sure enough, from this facility, we went from 20 people to 3,400 people last year being trained at a distance in Pakistan, India, Singapore, parts of Europe. But to hold up on a smartphone a heart that's beating in thin air to people in Pakistan, they think you're a magician. They can't comprehend how you just did that. And so you think it's tough for you to understand some of this stuff. People who have never had any education, all of a sudden seeing something that ORU is doing, we become, what should I say, their place that they connect to. In fact, if I showed you videotapes of the people from Pakistan, you would see they come up with their whole life story after a 3-month course and tell their whole story of how now they've been educated. And they only had a 3-month course. That's called life engagement. When you can get people to engage their life with you, you've made a huge step forward. And our president couldn't be happier with all these things that have taken place. So the definition of a flipped classroom, feel free to take a picture. We'll get the video or the presentation to everybody. So that wasn't very exciting. So let's flip the university. Let's make education available around the world, because this is my passion. It has nothing to do with technology, even though I deal in technology. Only 6% of the world has a post-high school degree, certificate, or diploma. 6%. But America selfishly has 45.6% of our adults with a post-high school diploma, certificate, or degree. Israel selfishly 70%. And I said, that's embarrassing. When it's every human being's right to receive an education and we have all the technology available, we ought to be ashamed of ourselves. And so when we got hold of the virtual reality and the whole concept, we ran with it. And that's what made us almost instant overnight success. But I was looking for a company that I didn't have to mess around with parts and pieces. How many of you like messing around with parts and pieces? It doesn't work. You got 6 vendors you're talking to, and you only want to holler at one. You get the point. And so the Eon became that for us. And I can tell you, being 3 years into it, there were some times I called up Eon and I wasn't happy, and they responded immediately. Now, that's important for everyone who's buying things, but the personality of the people at Eon, and I'm not here to sell anything. They didn't pay me to be here. I'm here telling you the truth about this made us successful, and that means a lot to me personally. It means a lot to our president and our board of trustees that we could have a partner that we can call, and their personalities are such. How can we help you? What can we do different to make it right for you? So that was very important. So the Internet of Things will go down in history as the worst named technology ever given to anything. Because if all we can do as technologists and leaders is to play with technology and turn up our hot water heater or open up our garage door from a distance, we're a sad lot. In fact, the Internet should be the Internet of freedom, the Internet of dignity, the Internet of for the people, by the people, versus something that is about a thing. And so you'll pick up on it through the presentation that I give. And so Oral Roberts University hit the Chronicle of Higher Education about 2 to 3 different times, the USA Today, off our Global Learning Center. But again, the centerpiece of the Global Learning Center wasn't the building, it was the fact that we can pass pieces of intelligence around the world. So how many of you know that education is one of the lowest forms of life? Okay? I'm going to tell you the higher of education. Education is down here, and it's packaged in 4-year degrees, and each year costs some money to somebody. But higher than education is training, where you get to work with your hands and you earn a living. Higher than training is actually knowledge, where you possess knowledge and somebody wants to hire you for your training, even though you've got that underlying lower primitive education. Higher than knowledge is intelligence. And if you can possess intelligence, multiple people want to hire you. You get invited places. And so we knew immediately when we saw the AVR creator, we can now pass intelligence around the world, not 4-year degrees. And if you can pass intelligence around the world at the key moments in time when people need them, you're helping people. You're helping humanity in a different way than we've ever did before. But higher than intelligence is, anybody know? Wisdom. And higher than wisdom is truth. And if you follow that pathway, all of a sudden, people change the way they think. So think of augmented and virtual reality this way. I can now pass pieces of intelligence to give people more wisdom and better truth. So I got invited by the Chinese government last October, and they just invited me back for this October. And they're putting billions into virtual reality. And their whole slogan from the airport, the time they picked me up the tarmac to the city center that they had me speaking in, it says VR adorns the world. And what their real translation is, it embellishes the world. That's how powerful VR is. But what they don't know, and I was laughing as I'm being taken from the airport, I said, they have no idea that virtual reality actually speaks to the human heart before the human brain. That science has proven that before your brain actually engages and picks up intelligence or knowledge or education, your heart was moved first, because your heart speaks to your brain more than your brain speaks to your heart. So one day the Chinese will wake up and say, wow, how did our citizenry change? Well, VR truly adorned their world. And it's like, wow, this is an incredible day, because it's the first time in my 25-year career where something touches the human heart besides just technology or a book or another online learning capability. And that's why Oral Roberts University has won, over the last 3 years, 2 of the United States Distance Learning Association Awards for Innovation. And there's the article in the USA Today. It's about diversity. If all I care about is myself or my institution or my city or my technology, I'm not really that helpful to people. But if somebody can put in my hands a technology that's integrated, that's seamless, and that passes like intelligence around the world, we can change the world. That's what my goal is. And so I've been waiting for something like this to come along, and that's why it breaks my heart in a way to see so many people confused by it and say, this is one of the, how many of you read the report recently that Cambridge has determined that you can use VR to identify dementia and Alzheimer's? It's all proven because the brain can be geo-fenced, if you would, through an internal GPS. And I said, man, we got to move forward quicker on augmented and virtual reality. So here's the background of the Global Learning Center. And our president said to me, Mike, are you sure? Augmented and virtual reality? Well, isn't there a different technology? And it's because they saw how many of you know presidents or leaders that like to sign money over to somebody else? Yeah, I thought so. And so our president gets a little worried, and he said, Mike, you better be sure about this. I said, no, I know, I got to pack my bags if it didn't work out. But that didn't even come close to it. So one day when they're getting squeamish about it, Six Flags in Dallas, Texas did a big breakthrough, I think, with Oculus early on. And they were going to give roller coaster riders a pair of glasses, so the experience of VR was on the roller coaster. Pretty ingenious. And so I typed up the president. I said, Dr. Wilson, great news. And I gave him the press release and everything. Six Flags is now going to let the roller coaster be the VR experience. So let's put the roller coaster in the parking lot instead of the Global Learning Center. And I paused in my email, and I said, however, I checked on the insurance policy, and it will actually cost us more for that than what we're agreeing to do in the Global Learning Center. They signed the agreement that day, and he's been happy ever since. So that was the beginning of the Global Learning Center. As I mentioned, it's really become the staple of universal understanding of transforming education. But it's very difficult because if I could have got rid of the building and not even used the building. That's why virtual and augmented reality are so powerful. I won't play the videos there. But augmented and virtual reality, how do you step into it? But this is the good news. 3 years later, you can see all the pre-augmented and virtual reality immersive learning and post. Okay, placement of international students went from 85% to 99.9%. How many of you want that kind of placement of people, whether it's in a corporate learning environment or education? Placement of all students. You see the numbers there. Online enrollment goes up. Traditional enrollment goes up. Certificate enrollment skyrockets. Student retention skyrockets. So you can see in every case, when we put this Global Learning Center as the staple for everyone to know that we care about people, but we used augmented and virtual reality, which touches what first? The heart, and then the brain. We changed everything. So we take virtual reality now and train people how to prepare for an interview on a key job. That's why the the placement is so high. But we're using virtual reality matched with avatars. How many of you know people like silly little animals bouncing around on a screen? I can't figure it out, but they do. Okay, so avatars tied in with virtual reality is quite impactful. And so here's the global awards that we have won. It's not to brag at all, but when you work in a higher education institution, you have to have some credibility on why is what we've done so important. And so you can see them, they continue. In fact, last week we went to Nashville and picked up another award. We've got another one coming out. This was the award last week in the USA Today reported. But here's that theme, if you would. What is augmented and virtual reality? And you can see the continuum up on top from Pokemon Go. How many of you know the world shifted in 2016? The internet reached its 10,000th day of invention. Newsweek reports that Pokemon Go reached 50 million people in less than 40 days, and augmented reality was the first technology to outpace pornography on the internet. Huge breakthrough, right? But think of it this way. Why is pornography successful to begin with? Because as a humanity, we teach people about hair, clothes, and teeth now. Are my teeth white? I won't show you. Okay, it's dark enough you won't notice. Okay, but if all we do is help people see the exterior, we miss the whole point of everything that's within us. And so with virtual reality, when we can hold up a heart, a thyroid, all the inner workings that a human being is, it changes the focus. And so we have not seen a technology, but it happened in 2016. People just didn't see the shift. And so we are seeing our university shift because of that shift that happened within augmented and virtual reality. Again, what were we looking for is to make sure that everything was involved. What was the USA process again? Understand, simplify, and then automate. If we're stumbling over glasses and devices, we're never going to be successful. In fact, I had a few key faculty members. How many of you ever had faculty members fuss with you a little bit? They said, Mike, you're doing it all wrong. We want Oculus glasses to be pulled down from the ceiling, and so every student gets a pair of Oculus glasses. And I almost lost that battle. It would have been ugly. Because guess what? Oculus glasses, if they get sold or whatever empowers them goes away, it's all done for. And so if you tie yourself to a brand name by itself, and that's what we appreciate about Eon Reality, they're not tied to the brand name. You can hear HoloLens from them, Microsoft, products. You can see other products that they're integrating, and that's what you really want, the USA process to take place. So what does the AVR industry and impact on education look like? Well, AI is really accelerated imaginations, not artificial intelligence. See, people get fearful of artificial intelligence, but if you really help people understand that you can actually accelerate your mind further than you ever thought. In fact, Albert Einstein proved the theory. It's E over mc squared, but from a human perspective, it says this. It's that body mass times the speed of light squared is the amount of joules that each human possesses. So you get to move at the speed of light, according to Albert Einstein. But most people can't because they're boxed into their behavior pattern or their region of the world or their institution, or they're institutionalized, as some would say it. And so to all of a sudden take virtual reality and integrate it with artificial intelligence changes a whole lot of things. To help the imagination of the human being is huge. So here's my theory on why virtual reality is so impactful. You can take machine learning, deep learning, Internet of Things, again, worst name in the history of technology, but at the center will become augmented virtual reality. You can watch the companies prove it now. Why? Because it's the technology that touches the human being. That's what all these systems have missed. Oral Roberts University has proven if you can touch the human heart physically by measuring the heart rate, you can understand cognitive load now. So we got universities calling us and saying, Mike, you're the only university who's did the right thing by putting a Fitbit wearable watch in every student's hands, because cognitive load can be measured by 3 percentage points of the heart rate. If your students are in a class and their heart rate doesn't shift by 3%, they're learning nothing. And so the systems of the world identify, oh, they're failing, but by the time they're failing, it's too late. And so I've been called upon by numerous high schools to say, Mike, come in and take our 20th toughest students and see if virtual reality can impact them. It takes about 30 minutes, and they're engaged. Every human being wants to be engaged. Every human being wants to be creative. And that's why I can't say enough. Why every institution is not implementing virtual reality is beyond my comprehension. And it's, well, we don't have money, we don't have time, but the truth is you can't make a decision. Decision-making is what's tough to come by in humanity, not the technology, or not the value of technology. And so immersive learning, I won't go over that detail there, you get the point. So now, here's the catch. How many of you have seen this video before? I don't have time to play it in my 30 minutes that I'm allotted. But if you watch this video, you'll find out there's 4 cameras on it that interact with your eyes, and it literally replaces that cube over there. That people will be able to experience the same thing on this when it's released, probably in about 3 more months. And now I just put fear in you because you're going to say, well, why don't we just wait 3 more months? Decisions are tough to come by. We're going to wait because we're afraid. How many of you are afraid that technology will change and you'll waste your money? Raise your hand, be honest. Okay. And don't worry about that, because when you invest, this was my board of trustees, president said, Mike, but why Eon Reality? Why this? Why that? And I said, don't you get it? Microsoft Office and Microsoft operating system haven't changed in 30 years, nor will they for the next 30 years. But the devices keep changing. So when you invest in a new technology, invest in the platform, because that won't change, the devices will, and you're safe. And that's why 3 years later, everybody's still recognizing the Global Learning Center as a leading entity in virtual reality. Why? Because we invested in the platform, not devices. I don't really care about devices that much. I care about the platform that allows us to develop and utilize the technology. So this will be phenomenal when it comes out. How much it costs, I don't know yet. So the potential right here is perfect by Forbes. Forbes says if you will not collaborate, you're going to miss the opportunity. And so since Eon Reality has been at Oral Roberts University, we've had at least 400 Fortune 500 companies come to visit us. We've had 88,000 visitors, all wanting to collaborate. Now, we're not the collaborator necessarily that we should be, but we're working more towards that than we ever have. And so as the president looks back and said, Mike, you were a genius with virtual reality. Look at how many people love ORU now. And I said, well, I wasn't a genius. I just could tell that virtual reality would be impactful for students, because that's really my passion. How do you help people be immersed into something that they've never been immersed before into? So again, back to this. You can go out and, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and I'll show you a piece right when I wrap up here. We're all excited about that. But it has nothing to do with virtual reality. So if you pay attention, artificial intelligence cannot have empathy, and it cannot have love, other than dating services, and it cannot have faith. And so we recognize that artificial intelligence will be very limited in a way But virtual reality will impact how a person believes about themselves. That's why Pokemon Go was so successful. It makes people engage in something they've never engaged before. How many of you know people that are intimidated or afraid of artificial intelligence? Raise your hand. There you go. How many people are afraid of Pokemon Go? Not many. It's touching. So the largest gathering of humanity happened on October 27th of last year. It was the Fortnite concert that took place. 10 million people around the world connected. It broke a record, but it meant that 10 million people have VR glasses in some form or another. The world has shifted. Now, if you're not playing with it, that's okay, because eventually I won't need a pair of glasses. But again, I'm not worried about the device. I want the platform to be able to do that. So here's Bloom's taxonomy split up real simply. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So the worst invention ever for education was called the alphabet, A through Z. Why? Because when you're in kindergarten, you're learning about shapes, sizes, colors, milk, and a nap, okay? As soon as you get out of kindergarten, you start learning this linear thing called the alphabet, A through Z, sentence structures, vowels, and if you can't understand a linear world, you get the finger pointed at you and say, you got ADHD. How many of you have ADHD in one form or another? Raise your hand and be honest. I got two. And so you get medicated to fit within the education system when Sir Ken Robinson has proven that the American education or ADD epidemic has been caused by the education system. The paranoia, the fear of not being successful compared to other students or being labeled as having learning disabilities. So to take somebody and bring them back to kindergarten has been one of my greatest passions. To say, come into virtual reality and go explore another part of the world. A 5-time Olympian came into our Eon Reality lab and came to me afterwards. She's 72 years old. You can look it up. Madeline Mims is her name. And she was the first African-American to win the 10,000 meter in 1968. She gets a hold of me and said, Mike, you changed my world. I said, what did I do? He said, you put a pair of VR glasses on me, and I went from the moon to Germany, and God reminded me of my calling in life at 72 years of age. And she got into USA Today. She told the story. I'm in China. I'm telling them the story. And it's like, that's how powerful it is. And I can't explain all the details behind VR, but we have watched people with color blindness, people who are blind, start seeing, not permanently, but while they're in VR. I don't understand it, but science now starts proving that you can solve chronic illness with VR because your brain is wired with neurons, or your neurons within your body start triggering your brain, and what you see is what you believe. You read the reports. I didn't make this up. Okay, so there it is. This is Eon's document. Actually, I just modified it slightly so you can see the cognitive process dimension and the knowledge dimension. Because this is Bloom's taxonomy, which came out over 40 years ago. And nobody in every discipline has reached the top of Bloom's taxonomy. Who knows what Bloom's taxonomy ultimate measurement was? Who knows what it is? It's called student engagement. And so, the virtual reality has helped every discipline now reach full student engagement. I understand nurses, it's easy to do that. Engineer, it's easier to do it. In certain fields it is. But across the board, it has not been easy. And now all of a sudden, that is completely capable. And you can see the learning trend here. I'm going to skip over a couple of these. So this is our president on the far right. He's the tall, good-looking guy. I'm the other guy on the other end. And so we won the Campus Technology Innovation of the Year Award, but by showing how we're putting eyeballs like this eye. Is it still on your screen? I can't see it from here. So that same eye is everywhere in the world now, right? But that eye, the MRI table, ended up in our Global Learning Center without any equipment, without buying it. And he said to me, Mike, how in the world did you just put an MRI table in here? And he said, he gave up. He said, I don't care. I love it. Because you're helping shift education in the way we've hoped it would be done. So here again, case study after case study. Now, you're going to find out, I think there's two companies that are fairly similar in the world that sell this stuff, but how many of you got 6 salespeople bugging you about VR in one form or another? There you go. And it's tiresome, but you ultimately have to make a decision. What's hard to come by? Decision making. And so the case studies have all been proven. It's no longer a company should have to come and prove that VR is making a difference. It's all documented in a lot of those case studies. So how do we tie this all together? So this is how an education system looks from the highest level. You have a student information system, you have a learning management system, but what we needed was a virtual reality education system to match those. And so now we can actually take any of the environments and put it into our learning management system, which we use Desire to Learn. You could be using Blackboard. But what was the goal again? USA, understand, simplify, automate. And so what we have found, how many of you believe the STEM lie, I call it? STEM, we got to get everybody going on STEM, STEM, STEM. In fact, you'll find there was just another name, STEMs, for scuba diving, added to the end for African Americans. Somebody gave enough money to put the S on the end of STEM. It went from STEM to STEAM to STEMs. But it's a lot of hocus pocus around that. What we have found with virtual reality, it's the social aspect that has made the difference. Our teachers who are taking live home situations of cocaine dealership, police officers coming to home and putting it in VR is rocking everyone's world. In fact, our professor's in New Jersey right now presenting at a national conference on her social work. It's been on TV. Our police department's been over because, everybody forgot that because we're so hooked on STEM, engineering, hard parts, and so forth. But we have found that virtual reality is much more effective when it comes to practical things like job interviews, social work, designing, and our students are designing. Almost every class now designs something in virtual reality. Why? Because we have the platform to do so. And so tourism, as we know, is a big item. Here's our professor, Dr. David Dyson, actually taking the Eon trackpad and bringing up a robot in a nice new classroom. And you know how long it took him to do it? Less than 2 minutes. He just knew. That's accomplishing USA. And he's now into avatars like you wouldn't believe, but he gets the point of how do you help people understand things in a different way. This is me holding up a cappuccino machine showing how a cappuccino machine is actually working. And if I played the video there, you'd see it all play out exactly the way but I'm holding up in thin air. So how many of you live in a state or country where they say there's no money for education? And say, that's a lie. Because I keep seeing all these buildings go up. They're putting money into buildings, but they should be putting it into this. It doesn't cost much more money to actually do augmented and virtual reality, but it sure costs a lot to put buildings and machinery in. And so this is me, thanks to Eon. I worked at Cray Research Supercomputer Company for 12 years, and last year they invented a quieter engine with their software. And so I stood in front of it. If you play this video, when you get the slide, you'll see I'm standing in front of that exact engine. Then I walked into the engine within our cube. My friends from Cray said, Mike, how in the world did you get the same engine and walk into it and then put it on a mobile phone? I said, it's called augmented and virtual reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mike.